WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM's Master of Business Administration is designed to accommodate the career needs of professionals across a variety of work organizations. More information at business.udmercy.edu.
It's the Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Nick Austin.
And I'm Tia Graham. Today on the program, we'll chat with the folks from the Berkeley Street Art Fair taking place this weekend, learning more about the one-day event.
But first on the Metro, when you think of Detroit, you think of Motown, the classic music to come out of this city. And why do we have such classic music? It was because of the producers behind some tracks. One person I think of, Paul Reiser Sr., born in Detroit, educated in Detroit, places like Cass Tech High School. He's the man behind tracks like My Girl, I Heard It Through the Grapevine, Papa Was a Rolling Stone. And in interviews with him, including one that he did with our own Ann DeLisi, he mentioned music education. The high-class education we had in music here in Detroit was a big reason he was able to learn and create such wonderful music. Well, people are a little concerned about where music education is going right now with funding being cut in so many places. So, how do we get the youth back into the music, create other legends like Paul Reiser? One idea is coming out of Wayne State University right now, which is hosting the J. Dilla Music Teaching Workshop, which is going through its third consecutive summer. The workshop is a multi-day experience helping Michigan's K-12 music teachers learn new ways to teach music in the classroom, inspired by the late, great Detroit producer and songwriter, J. Dilla. To learn more about the project and how they hope it influences music education in and around Detroit, we're joined by two of the folks who are instrumental in putting the project together. One of the instructors for this event, or at this event, is Michael Schellebarger, who is an assistant professor of music technology at Wayne State University. Michael, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you.
We have Jacqueline Rutterow, who's the senior director of school programs for Save the Music. Jacqueline, welcome to the Metro.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, Michael, I want to start with you since you're here. Both of you are here, but you're based right there over in Wayne State with the music. Why did you create the J. Dilla Music Tech Teaching Workshop in the first place, and what's your goal with the project?
Well, it's an opportunity that came to us a few years ago with Save the Music and with different relationships and partnerships. And one of the things I like about it and I think is necessary is to be able to educate these teachers in the classroom on how to implement technology into a traditional music curriculum, and how to find pathways for students to create the music that they're listening to along with everything else.
Yeah, and this workshop, as you mentioned, we got those K-12 teachers learning a little bit more. They might not be so familiar with J. Dilla's music, but best believe a lot of their students are, or once they hear it will probably be impacted. I remember growing up, you didn't hear a lot about hip-hop education in my music classes. But you also mentioned, Michael, Save the Music, which is why I'm going to transition to Jacqueline right now, because that's your organization. And in looking at the website, the stated mission says it's to help students, schools, and communities reach their full potential through the power of making music. So I want to ask you, Jacqueline, what do you mean by full potential, and how do you believe music can do this?
Well, every child, no matter where they attend public school, has the right to a rich and full, high-quality music education. And Save the Music Foundation's mission is to partner with communities all across America, partner with school districts like DPSCD and surrounding metropolitan Detroit school districts, really to support filling those gaps where students may not have access to music education. And we do that through grant making, filling classrooms with musical instruments, with technology, and then supporting teachers with professional development opportunities like what we're doing here at Wayne State this week.
Yeah, and I love that you bring up that access to quality equipment. I mean, that's one of the reasons J. Dilla even was able to get his start. We've been celebrating the life life of Amp Fiddler, who was a musician in the area that had access to so many of these tools, but it's also difficult to get access to it. Maybe one of the reasons why we don't see it implemented as much in music. Michael, this leads me back to you, though, thinking of our music education system. How have you seen music education change around the city and elsewhere since you started out? You started with music education, but I feel like it's been changing. How have you seen it change?
Well, I think it's evolving, and I think it's a cool thing. We start, with music education in schools, we started with orchestral music and jazz music because that was the music of the time, and I think updating the curriculum without abandoning where it came from, updating it to the music of the time now, kind of meeting students where they are, what they're listening to, and drawing a line back to, the fundamentals of all this stuff we're teaching is an important thing. So as music evolves on the radio or on our phones or on our iPads, we need to understand what we've evolved from, but also understand what people are doing now with it.
Yeah. Well, then why would Jay Dilla be the entrance point for teaching music tech? For example, a workshop like this. For example, I love his music. A lot of folks do. The truth is, though, the newest stuff that he created before his passing, that's in the 2000s, right? We're getting a couple decades out from that. Is that what the kids are listening to now? Or why do you think Jay Dilla is a good entrance point for teaching a music tech workshop like this?
One of the things, especially with Jay Dilla and music tech, is he reset the standard for what's expected of producers, especially in the genre that he was in. It kind of reset. So everything today, when you're a producer and you're trying to produce beats, it's the new benchmark for where music tech, especially in hip hop, music tech stands. So that's kind of why he's an amazing reference point. And it's, if you talk to producers and beat makers today, it's everybody's favorite. It's everybody's go-to for that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. As we're speaking with Michael Schellebarger, who is an assistant professor with Wayne State University, and Jacqueline Rutterow, who's the senior director of school programs at Save the Music. And Jacqueline, you're instrumental in so much of what's happening, not only here, but also around the nation, as since 2018, Save the Music has overseen the Jay Dilla Music Tech Grant, which has allowed for workshops like this to be implemented not only here, but other places. So can you tell us where else you've been able to use Jay Dilla as an entrance point into the work that you do? And do you have any way of quantifying the impact that it's having on music education?
So to date, since 2018, we now have more than 100 public schools that have received the Jay Dilla Music Technology Grant. And in all of those communities, we have local partners like Wayne State or a community music school, Detroit, that provide mentorship and partnership with the teachers to ensure they have support in taking on this new and innovative way of teaching music. For many music teachers, they come out of their undergrad or their grad work with just a little bit, maybe one semester on music technology education. These are band directors, choir directors that are really excited about something new that their students can connect with. But having that local partner that can really support them through the process as they're building out this curriculum in their school is essential. And so in every community we're in, like Atlanta, Miami, New York, New Jersey, at Los Angeles, here in Detroit, we have those unique partners that are local folks that really know their stuff. And then when Jay Dilla is, of course, the namesake of the grant, the respect and just his legacy is like no one did it better. So there's this universal just kind of love for him and what he did, and just the meticulousness of the way he worked that everyone is unified for.
Yeah. And, you feel that love there and that support. I was even looking and seeing you're in so many different states and their appreciation for Dilla's work. Also, looping you back in, though, Michael, when it comes to helping music educators, you talk about that background in classical music and the way teachers are normally taught through school. It's got to be a little bit different learning some of this other work. Indeed, you yourself were a little bit self-taught when it came to learning how to use some of this technology. What are the things that you are introducing to music teachers to help them implement this for the youth so that there's a little bit more of a connection in creating music education?
One of the things I like to focus on is that it's all music. It's not it's different from what I grew up listening to and learning, but it's not so different that you couldn't understand it. So finding that approach and finding the connection point with everybody, having something to create. I know this machine can do what I want it. What I need, I just need to spend the time to figure out how to get it to do that is kind of the touch point of that. So giving people time to make mistakes, correct mistakes, learn new things, kind of expand their comfort zone in a safe space is really what's going to help these teachers connect to any students now or students in the future that are listening to anything or studying any type of music.
Yeah, and I think this gets into the idea of music education just generally, because we are talking about how it's evolving. You're talking about how it's evolving. What ways have you found to be the best in terms of introducing kids, K through 12, getting them more interested in music and maybe learning it at a little bit more of an educational level, not just necessarily casually listening? We love jumping in there, but really teaching them what's behind the music that they enjoy.
I think the cool thing that's behind it is, whoever you're listening to, they were listening to somebody. Find out who they were listening to and listen to them and kind of follow that string backwards, and it opens up so many doors of music. Follow your local influences, follow, why did the person you love, why the person who got you into music, what got them into music, and you kind of follow those pathways and build your own music history education. And that's where I like to start with everybody.
Yeah, and Jacqueline, I want to also loop you in because you're not only seeing what's happening here, but again, your organization has national reach. Is there anything that you've been learning, especially for parents who are out there trying to introduce their kids to music that maybe they've enjoyed, or kind of get them a little gateway, a little path into expanding their horizons in music? What recommendations do you have?
So anyone with an iPhone has access to GarageBand, and that is the first entry point in working within the digital audio workstation and potentially creating beats, recording, mixing, and students today all have a phone and they're all listening to music. They have it right at their fingertips. So those connections are vital, really, to be interested in what the students are passionate about, and then you can, through that, and then the tools that are right in their hands every day, start to make those connections and build upon that. And that's what's been magical to see in the schools across the country that we've supported.
That's right. For people who want to learn more information about what you're doing, especially with these J. Dilla Music Tech grants, maybe get involved with it, Jacqueline, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way is to go to sevethemusic.org, and you can go to How We Work. Reach out to us at stmschool@savethemusic.org. If you have any questions, we're there to support and answer whatever questions you have.
And Michael, if I'm someone around here, whether a student or an educator, and I want to learn a little bit more about how to implement what you guys are doing into my work, what's the best way for me to do that?
Like I say, like Jacqueline was saying, get involved with the program. There's so many free digital audio workstations online. Start working with those. Find tools that'll do what you're thinking of, and share them with other people. And talk about the process. Like I say, we're teaching the process as much as the tools. Yeah. And the process of recording and organizing stuff is the important part.
All right, Michael Schellen. Oh, go ahead, Jacqueline.
No, I was just going to share as well. We have a fantastic resources page on our website. So for music teachers to go, and in the music technology space, there are a ton of free applications that you can go and check out on savethemusic.org.
All right. Michael Schellenbarger, assistant professor with Wayne State University, and Jacqueline Rutterow, senior director for school programs at Save the Music. Thank you both for joining us on the Metro.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
And the J. Dilla Music Tech Teaching Workshop, it's not the only event involving Dilla this week. Friday, July 12th, is the opening reception for the I Got Beats in These Fingertips exhibition. That reception's being held at 5 p.m. will feature poetry from Jessica Care Moore and her son King, if you haven't seen him out there. The exhibition itself includes original paintings by funk pioneer George Clinton, music equipment from legendary producers, and art inspired by Dilla as well as much more. Find out information at the Wayne State University College of Fine, Performing, and communication arts website. This is the Metro.
Coming up, we'll chat about a new idea that's being floated around. What if we ran clean energy under the Great Lakes to then power the state of Michigan? We'll talk about that and more coming up next after Nick and I actually figure out how to speak.
Yeah,
so
it'll happen.
Yep.
It'll happen. It's the Metro on 1019 WDET. As we mentioned earlier, there is a goal here to work both privately and publicly towards energy, towards clean energy specifically. In fact, under Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the state of Michigan announced it wants 100% of its electricity to be clean by 2040. Companies like DTE Energy want to transition by 2050, and Ford and GM hope to transition even sooner, previously announcing that they want all their cars to be electric by 2035. But changing the way we get our power is not simply about transitioning to electric vehicles and putting solar on rooftops. A key element to the transition is about distribution. That is, according to researchers, that the U.S. should be focusing on its power lines because that's the technology that will transfer from wind, solar, and nuclear energy sources. Well, recently, a Midwestern grid monitoring nonprofit floated the idea of doing this in our state, running clean energy via a line to Michigan that goes under the Great Lakes and moves energy from wind sources in the Dakotas. It's just an idea at this point, but it's an idea that could have a lot of problems and a lot of critics. But it's also an interesting one that has a lot of promise to those who believe in it. To discuss it now, we have Sherry McWhirter with us. She is a climate and energy reporter for the media outlet MLive, and she's been writing about the possibility of transferring clean energy under the Great Lakes. Sherry, welcome to the Metro.
Thanks so much for having me.
This is an idea that is a new one for me, and I'm glad I'm hearing about it because how often do we get to hear really new ideas out there? So where did you first hear about this idea when it comes to wind turbines from the Dakotas powering clean energy here in Michigan?
Well, I've been reporting a little bit about the efforts to expand long-range distribution lines across the MISO footprint, which is the regional grid network that Michigan is a part of.
Yeah.
And they had approved a $10 billion project a couple years ago that I wrote about. They call it Tranche 1, which is a weird word for people who aren't involved in the electric sector. And so I just kind of kept tabs on when their Tranche 2 was going to come out. And when it did, I saw a map that showed a line that cut across Lake Michigan, and my eyes popped out of my head, and I thought, what the heck is that? And so then I asked.
Yeah. And you're referring to MISO, the Mid-Continent Independent Systems Operations, and they've been that nonprofit again that's been monitoring the grid. When we think about getting the energy here, let's just get an idea for the baseline. Like how much energy is running out of the Dakotas? How much extra power are we talking about? Is that something that Michigan could use all of it and just be clean, or do we have an idea of what percentage we could get to?
Well, that's pretty unknown at this point, because it'll all depend on whether or not this project ever gets any legs underneath it. But the idea of why the energy in the Dakotas is so cheap was new to me, too. And I learned about it when I was actually standing in the Wolverine Electric Co-op office in Cadillac. And I was looking at a map on the wall of a live feed of the electric prices all the way across the MISO footprint, like what everybody was charging everywhere for the electricity they were generating. And I noticed that in the Dakotas area and western Minnesota, western Iowa, it was just absolutely glowing purple, meaning that the energy was just ultra cheap. And I asked, well, what's that about? And they said, well, they're making so much energy on their wind turbines that they're at risk of crashing their grid. Because the way grids operate is balancing, right? You got to balance the demand and the supply as closely as possible. That's what MISO does. And so out there out west, especially in it was in the late winter months, they were generating a lot of electricity, so much that they were at risk of overloading and crashing their grid. So they weren't just charging cheap rates, they're giving it away, literally paying other utilities and cooperatives to take their electricity so that they don't have to shut down turbines.
Well,
and I simply asked the question, well, how does Michigan get some of that? And Wolverine said, how indeed? And then come to find out, they made this proposal.
So many questions. So let's talk about the logistics of getting it there, right? Like you're talking about this pipeline, how we would get it there. Someone's going to have to pay for it. I suspect there's different interest in how to do that. So I could ask all of them individually, but I'll just heap it on you. Logistically, what's it going to take to make this happen? Where are we looking at the funding? What have you seen there?
Well, it's really pretty early on, and this is super conceptual at this time. Wolverine, they've got this idea, and they want it vetted, and so MISO is the entity that does that. They put their engineers and their scientists on it to figure out whether or not it's got any feasibility, and just to make sure we're using the right language, it wouldn't necessarily be what's called a pipeline. It would be a cable. So it's a little different. Yeah. Oil and gas has pipelines, and high voltage electric lines have cables. But logistically, it would be very complicated, extremely complicated. I don't even know how complicated it would be. Off the top of my head, I could think that it would require approval not just from MISO first, but then it would go before the Michigan Public Service Commission. I imagine the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers would have a hand in deciding whether or not this goes forward. I should think that the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy would have some permitting on this. They may even ask the state DNR, Department of Natural Resources, for some input for fisheries. And that's just Michigan. You got to think about on the other side, there would be Wisconsin, too. And I'm less familiar with their regulatory systems. So it would take a lot of work. It would take years to work this out. And MISO's got this on their agenda to look at it, but not until like next year, maybe even late next year. So it's really conceptual at this point, but it just seems such a fascinating idea, one that I had never heard of before. So I had to write about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like it's in its infancy, so we're going to continue to monitor it. There are so many questions and ideas I have here. I'm sure we'll learn more as people think about it more, but it's really cool to introduce the idea right now. Sherry McWhirter, climate and energy reporter from the media outlet MLive. Thank you so much for hanging out here with us, as we've got a little bit more here to get into. I would agree with that. So one of the things I'd like to know about when we're thinking about this then is, what are the two competing sides on? Because one thing is with the environment, we have that people want it to be clean energy, but then there's concerns when you talk about running lines underwater. I know people are like, well, wait, what if there's anything that happens in terms of destroying links to our environment and other concerns? So what are the competing interests that we have here, the pros and cons that you've been hearing at this infancy?
Well, I didn't do a whole lot of checking around with all of the environmental players that would have an opinion on this, because it is in its infancy, and I just wanted to report that the idea was being floated. But I can imagine that this concept might ultimately pit some environmental advocates against some other environmental advocates. And we see that sometimes. Not every issue is black and white. Yeah. There's a lot of gray ones. I saw that particularly in recent months in reporting on nuclear energy. Some environmental advocates see it as a primary climate solution, and others see it as a reckless risk that we need not take when there are other renewable sources.
But are there any specifics that they're pointing to for the recklessness of the risk, though?
Oh, well, when it comes to nuclear, or when it comes to this cable?
I would think more of the cable. I mean, one thing that I'm thinking about isn't even so much environmental, right? For example, if you're relying on another state to feed you power and something happens in that state, or they go through a different regulatory scheme, or forbid one of the governors there just gets mad at you and tries to pull off the pump, right? So, like, there's a lot of things that we think about with it. Go ahead.
It doesn't really work kind of like that. Governors can't really pull the plug on each other. But what would be interesting about this line, should it ever be approved and built, is that the power can actually flow both ways. So if Wisconsin had some kind of major emergency, right, if they had something like a bunch of tornadoes and it disrupted their grid, Michigan could come to their aid. So, if we were to get the Palisades nuclear plant turned back on, which is a goal of the owner, if that were to happen, we could send nuclear energy to Wisconsin to help. And then the advantage for Michigan is that if we're shifting to more renewable sources that can be intermittent, the wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine, and we're getting off coal, well, we could perhaps import some renewable energy from the Great Plains, where they are literally giving it away. And we could store it in places like our pumped hydro facility in Ludington, operated by Consumers. It's jointly owned by Consumers Energy and DTE, and store energy and then release it onto the grid whenever Michigan needs it. So there's advantages to both sides, which is why, there'll be officials on both sides of the lake who are going to have opinions on this.
All right. Well, that's where we're going to have to end it. Sherry McWhirter, climate and energy reporter for the media outlet MLive. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thanks so much for inviting me. It's great to talk about these things.
This is the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. And coming up, we'll hear about a program that trains young Detroiters to engage in the world of tech. You all stay right there.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET. A little earlier, we were speaking about how to develop music education in the youth. One of the ways in doing it, getting them involved with some of the more technical aspects, technology, and how it's involved in music. But that's not the only place and the only way we can help with developing our world in tech.
That is 100% correct. Detroit's Apple Developer Academy celebrates its third graduating class, making sure that it's teaching its residents how to continue on in the world of tech. 140 Detroiters so far have gotten a chance to hop aboard the city's growing tech sector. The program is an intensive 10-month course teaching coding, design, marketing, and project management, and so much more. Right now, we'll have Darnell Adams, the Vice President of Detroit Community Initiatives for the Gilbert Family Foundation, on the Metro. Welcome, Darnell.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
Hello. And of course, we have Maya Caldwell here, who is a 2024 graduate of the Detroit Apple Developer Program or Academy. Maya, welcome to the Metro.
Hey, y'all. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Darnell, we're going to start with you. The Apple Developer Academy, it's celebrating its third graduating class. How does that feel to go through three groups now, three cohorts now?
It is a pretty magical experience, knowing that Detroit is the recipient of one of 6 Apple Developer Academies in the entire world, and knowing that we are helping local Detroiters and learners access critical, essential tools around tech to be able to compete in the evolving and changing world that we're seeing. So it's awesome.
And if you could, for those out there who's listening, who maybe are interested or just want to know a little bit more, what is the Apple Developer Academy?
Yeah, so the Apple Developer Academy was originally announced as part of Apple's 100 million Racial Equity and Justice Initiative. And so in 2021, the Gilbert Family Foundation, Michigan State University, and Apple came together to stand up this academy here in Detroit. And our focus was really to make sure that Detroiters were a part of this, knowing that we already have a vibrant Black entrepreneurship and developer community, but we wanted to make sure that we were closing the gap on the racial disparities in the tech industry nationally.
It goes back to what was happening with the group organization here, Black Tech Saturdays, and I think about some of the things that they're doing, and just thinking about those groups that are popping up across the city of Detroit, Metro Detroit, and Michigan and as a whole, trying to diversify the tech world. What can you say about some of the groups that you're seeing popping up, and especially the community that's growing and the people that you're adding to that growing community?
For me, it is... it's all organic, and that's what I really love about it. Black Tech Saturdays, started out with, just a Saturday, and it just continued to grow. The momentum grew. And, what we're beginning to see now are these sectors sort of merging together. So, Apple Developer Academy, Black Tech Saturdays, really beginning to work together, Tech Town, all of these different sectors that have been focused on tech sort of in their own silos are now more organically coming together to make sure that more Detroiters are aware of all of the resources that exist for them to become more tech fluid and proficient.
Right now, we are chatting with Darnell Adams, the Vice President of Detroit Community Initiatives for the Gilbert Family Foundation, and Maya Caldwell is here with us. She is a 2024 graduate of the Detroit Apple Developer Academy. So, Maya, bringing you into the conversation, who is Maya? Why did you decide to enroll in the program?
Yeah, so I say that the Academy came at a pivotal point in my life. My mom had recently passed away, and so I was in the midst of grief, but also trying to figure out, what is the rest of my life going to look like? How do I want it to look, and what do I want to do? And so I received the interest form for the Apple Developer Academy, looked into it, and it really spoke to me in some of my career goals of getting into tech, but not necessarily knowing exactly what I wanted to do. So I went ahead and applied.
And, it's a free program as well. We'll get back to that with you, Darnell, a little bit later, but it's a free program, so you applied. What does that process look like once you submit the application?
Yeah, so they send out an interest form. So if you are interested, you fill it out. Then they'll go ahead and reach out to you to either schedule an interview or give more information. So my process was I filled out the interest form. They reached out for an interview. I had a one-on-one interview as well as just a group interview. And they just wanted to see, how we interact with each other and if we're able to collaborate, kind of solve problems, just kind of informal, but getting to know people and how, the program might be in person.
And just thinking about that type of opportunity. It's a free program. You're working with like-minded individuals who are all trying to learn something new to grow themselves. What is that like being in that type of space?
Yeah, I would say it was awesome. I would think that's probably the highlight of my experience is being there and meeting new people who also are in the same journey of trying to figure out, their space in tech. And so, especially like myself, I'm 30. And so a lot of internships and programs out here, they're looking for recent college grads or people who are still in college. But people like myself and many people that I met in the program is kind of like getting a second chance to really dive into something new and learn and get the opportunities out of that as well.
And I want to build off of that, Maya, because, that second opportunity, there are so many folks who may go into a field or go into something and they think, I might like this, or this may be what I want to do for the rest of my life. And then you do it and you're like, So when you are presented with opportunities like this one, what do you tell other people around your, others, especially since being a graduate of the program? What do you tell other people about capitalizing and charting their own path forward?
Absolutely. I always say just remain open. The best thing you can do is show up and just be open to what, you're there to learn or what comes your way. And I think that's the best way to approach this program as well. Even if you think you might have an idea of what you want to do, just still remain open. You never know what you could add to that, or if you might, decide you want to do something completely different. So just remain open to the process and where it can take you.
All right. So we're going to bring Darnell back into the conversation. Darnell, just, hearing from Maya right now, one of the most recent graduates from that graduating class, what else do you hear from recent graduates or those who've been through the program?
Yeah, so it's interesting. First of all, Maya, I love hearing this. This is exactly sort of the outcomes that we all want to see with a program like this. But, I think having that going into the program with an open mind, not every student has the same goal or outcome. Some students are looking to credential up. Some students are looking to figure out, is there an opportunity for me to become an entrepreneur? And then some are just doing it for as a hobby. And what we found is that there are more students who really want to pivot and move into that entrepreneurship space. And things that we've done over the last couple of years. So this entire program and all of the work that we're doing is a part of our $500 million commitment to the city of Detroit that we announced a few years ago. And so we found that there have been some opportunities to build additional programming on top of the academy. So when students leave, they have an opportunity to join a Renaissance program, which is an opportunity to keep training those students, providing the mentorship. We keep hearing mentorship is like a critical need for entrepreneurs. We've heard that from Invest Detroit, TechTown, NEI, and it helps to foster like an entrepreneurship and innovation space. And then on top of that, so like you have that component, but then there's this sort of niche program that was also created called Operations School, and that particular school, it teaches the graduates how to prepare and operate their business, gives them that hands-on curriculum, one-on-one TA, how to project manage and more. So we are always learning new ways to continue to elevate our students because we want to make sure that they're successful and that what they need, they have.
I love that. So, Maya, you're going to get the last word here. Just hearing what Darnell just said about just the different pathways you can take after graduation through program and funding through the Gilbert Family Foundation. So there's other ways that you can go. So many different things you can do. For you, being a graduate now, kind of seeing what paths are lighting up for you, how does it feel, I guess, or what is it like to have a new outlook, I guess?
It feels awesome. So like Darnell said, I'm actually going into the Renaissance program,
Congrats.
so that second piece of the academy. And I'm really excited because, like he said, kind of bridging the gap between maybe entrepreneurial goals as well as tech. The Operations School really helped with, making that connection and giving tangible things to do to fulfill the things that you want to do. So I'm excited for Renaissance and seeing where that can take me and actually working hands-on with different companies and different people.
I love it so much. Darnell, actually, I'm going to ask you one more question. When's the next Apple Developer Academy? When does it start up?
So the applications for 2024-2025 have closed, so we'll have to wait to see when Apple opens up the next cohort for 2025.
Well, if anyone's listening, I hope you're keeping that in mind, that you will have this opportunity sooner than later. We were chatting with Darnell Adams, Vice President of Detroit Community Initiatives for the Gilbert Family Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro, Darnell.
Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share this great program with listeners.
And Maya Caldwell, a 2024 graduate of the Detroit Apple Developer Academy and soon to be a part of the Renaissance program as well. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's the Metro on 1019 WDET. We just heard about tech. We also heard a little bit earlier about energy, a new plan to bring clean energy to Michigan. But what about folks who have EVs, electric vehicles? How are they going to get around? Well, Consumers Energy plans to install more than 1,000 electric vehicle charging stations in Michigan. Spokesperson Brian Wheeler says the company intends to place 1,500 or more fast charging stations in the Lower Peninsula by the end of the decade. So we'll see if that's able to happen. If you've got an EV, you got to sustain it with electricity. It's like the sustenance. It's the food. It's what you eat on. It's what your vehicle needs to you in order to survive, thrive, live. It's kind of like eating food for a car, right?
It truly, truly is. Hopefully we can find different alternatives to the ones that we have now. Give people options. But, just thinking of the need for food and the need for sustenance, from fall to late spring, many kids are regularly fed by their school. And for most families, it's one less meal to worry about during the week. But what happens come summertime? Throughout America and in Metro Detroit, there are several organizations and summer food programs that help feed kids and their families. No Kid Hungry is a national campaign run by the Share Our Strength nonprofit, which tries to resolve hunger and poverty in America. No Kid Hungry feeds families on the national, state, and local levels. To discuss the severity of food insecure children, what they experience in the summer, and what No Kid Hungry does to help them, we have Eleni Towns. Eleni is the director of No Kid Hungry State Campaigns. Eleni, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, looking at children's food insecurity in America, specifically in Michigan as well, is it worse over the summer months that you all are seeing, and to what degree?
Unfortunately, it is. As you mentioned, schools are an amazing system to help fight off food insecurity among kids. Nationwide, 30 million kids rely on school meal programs for a free or reduced price breakfast, a lunch, and even after school meal or snacks. In Michigan, that's more than 900 students that rely on this meal assistance. And then when summer hits and a lot of schools close down, most of those meals go away. And research shows that food insecurity increases for kids across the country.
And how do schools provide better nutrition for food insecure families, and especially in the summer? Is it a little bit easier to do something like that in the summer when we're thinking about providing sustenance and food in the summertime? But is it easier to kind of make healthier choices for families?
Yeah, the meals that are provided in schools and also in the summertime through schools and community-based organizations are great, nutritious meals. They are federally funded and also supervised federally, and so they have to have certain components to make sure they're meeting the nutrition that's needed for kids. Those guidelines are set up by U.S. dietary guidelines, so kids are ensured to have milk and protein and fruits and vegetables and whole grains. They're really important to ensure that kids get the nutrition they need. Lots of research has tested that shows that actually kids who consume school meals are getting better nutrition, fruits and vegetables, milk, less sugar than those that are purchasing meals or bringing their own meals to school. So these are healthy meals. The question in the summer is how do we make sure families and kids have access to them? Because there's lots of transportation and other barriers set up in the summertime, which is why we see that big summer meal gap.
Yeah. So what programs right now are you seeing within the communities like Detroit over the summer that are providing those meals for families?
Yeah, so there's a couple. There are a couple of programs and actually some new opportunities this year that I think listeners should be aware of. So there's the traditional summer meals program in Michigan. It's often called Meet Up and Eat Up, and it's a great opportunity for kids to get access to meals. So at schools and community organizations, at parks and recs or parks, other places where kids congregate, providers are able to offer meals at no charge to kids 18 and younger. So this is a great opportunity for families to get meals for their kids. If you are trying to figure out where that is available in Detroit or anywhere in the state, you can go to michigan.gov Meet Up, Eat Up to see what sites are available, their hours, their locations, and to pick up those options. So that's a great option for families that have a meal site near them. Another option that is available for families this year is Summer EBT. And this is a brand new program. It's a permanent program. It's been tested prior to the pandemic, and there were other options similar to that during the pandemic. So we know it works, and we're really excited that it'll be available in Michigan this year. The idea is that for kids that qualify for meal assistance during the school year, they'll receive a grocery benefit card, $120 for the summer months that their families can use at any grocery store where they purchase meals or purchase groceries to help address some of the gaps during the summer months.
Yeah.
So between the meals and the benefit cards, two really, really great interventions to support families that may be having additional needs this summer.
Thank you so much for giving us that additional information. Before I let you go, No Kid Hungry work towards addressing these hunger needs for children in the summer. How does that work, and what are some of the things that you all are doing to continue this work going into the future?
Yeah, we're here to help providers operate meal programs to make sure meals are available in their community. And we're here to also help get out the word about this benefit. We know federal benefit programs are critical and they can end food insecurity, but they only work if families know about them and are able to access them. So we provide support to school districts and CBOs to operate programs and connect families to those benefits where they're available.
Thank you so very much. We have been chatting with Eleni Towns, the director of No Kid Hungry State Campaigns, talking about child food insecurity in America and Michigan and how they're helping feed these families this summer. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thanks for having me.
It is the Metro on 101.9 WDET. Coming up, we'll learn more about the Berkeley Street Fair happening this weekend.
Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. One of our favorite things to do on the Metro is talk about art. What's happening in the world of art? The streets of Berkeley will be filled with vibrant colors this weekend when an array of artists showcase their talents by creating artwork with chalk. That's because the city of Berkeley will be hosting its Street Art Fest this weekend. The fair will run on July 13th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And along with chalk art, there will be events for kids, including a DJ, face painting, balloon artist, and several food trucks. To discuss the fair, we have Darlene Rothman here. She is the events director for the Berkeley Area Chamber of Commerce. Darlene, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you.
So as we approach,
How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. We haven't spoken in a while. Actually, I spoke to you on the Culture Shift about the Berkeley Art Fair last year. So thank you for returning to WDET.
Thank you for having us.
So as we approach this fest coming up this weekend, what do you think are some of the most exciting activities that are planned?
Well, it's just like a party in the street. The main thing that happens is that it's a chalk contest. There's incredible chalk artists, about 50 chalk artists that'll be there, and they create during the day. So it evolves and people stroll around to see as it develops. There's a people's choice that people can actually vote on their favorite chalk artist. There's kids, adults, and team categories, so all different levels. We bring in David Zinn. He's our feature artist. He's from Ann Arbor, and he's been with us every year, and he will do a creation, a few of them during the day, and then about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, he's actually going to do a presentation and give some helpful hints for people who want to know some interesting ways to do chalking.
Which is so cool.
And it's very cool. It's very cool. But in addition to that, we have this year a new thing called Yappy Hour, which is we're encouraging people to come to the event with their dogs. There is going to be a dog adoption that's going on in front of one of the businesses called Coffee and Bark. There's going to be a professional photographer, florist photo design, and they are going to, you can bring your dog to get a professional picture taken of just your dog, of you and your dog, or if you just want a picture of yourself. He's going to be doing that. We're going to have character artists. So there's a whole focus on dogs, and there's dog vendors. And we have a kids zone.
Hey, Darlene, really quickly, though, because we're getting close down to the end here, I just want to make sure we hit all the points about the Berkeley Art Fair, especially chalk art. But I want to get into a little bit of the dozens of murals that are going to be up as well, that are up right now that define the city. What would you say, or how would you say this type of art festival defines the city of Berkeley?
The mural program started because of the Street Art Fest event, and there are murals all over the community. In fact, this year we put a booklet together with a map of all of the murals in the city, so you can come anytime and discover what these murals are. There's a lot of them on Coolidge, where this event is, a lot on 12 Mile, all over Berkeley. Berkeley is very supportive of the arts, and it continues to grow.
Thank you so much, Darlene. We're running out of time here, but that was Darlene Rothman, the events director for Berkeley Area Chamber of Commerce, discussing the Berkeley Street Art Fest this summer. It was happening this weekend, actually, July 13th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Once again, Darlene, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Great. Thanks for having me.
And that's going to do it for The Metro, produced by Sam Corey, David Lyons, and Jack Philbrandt, with additional production support from Manel Scott and Sydney Walkley. Our engineers, Nate Bender, with music by Sam Bobian and Will Sessions. This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.
WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM is offering a new master's degree in ethical leadership focused on sustainable, ethical, and inclusive problem solving. More information at business.udmercy.edu.